to discuss if the second half is going to be as awesome as the first half. Is the bull run over? Is it going to continue? Crypto stocks, we've seen massive rallies in the first half, and obviously a lot of people are asking, should I keep doubling down? Should I keep dollar cost averaging? Should I sell? Should I buy? What should I be doing? Well, prices are up. So when I told Fabio, I said, Fabio, 6 p.m., we have our Twitter space, we have our YouTube live, and he looks at the Bitcoin price at 31,000. He's like, boss, watch your mouth. Just kidding. Fabio is on a well-deserved leave, so it's just going to be me today, and I'll walk you through the topics we have today. I prepared actually 2 blog posts. Actually, I didn't prepare them. My amazing team prepared them, and we're going to reflect a bit. Last quarter, we're going to preview a bit of the next quarter, and I'm going to give you some thoughts on everything that's going on. And we're going to do a separate session, actually, where we're talking about what's happened at Cake in Q2 and what's kind of a bit of a forecast for Q3. We're going to do this separately. As you know, we always release a transparency report, and I think it makes more sense to do it in that kind of sense. So without much further ado, let's dive in. Let's look what's been happening, what's been going on. First, let's talk about prices, because I do think price, it's always an interesting one to kind of lead with. So looking at the quarterly results, if you're listening to this on Twitter, then you will just have my voice on this, and I'll just kind of guide you through. Bitcoin is really sneaked another green quarter in Q2, 7% up in the second quarter. The interesting part in this is really, though, that this basically happened in the last 2 weeks of June, and this is something to really kind of look into. It's very interesting. I mean, the quarter looked quite questionable for Bitcoin, and then in the last 2 weeks, it kind of sneaked through. It was also very interesting. All the way until mid-June, Bitcoin underperformed against Ethereum after the Chapella upgrade, which happened in April. But then in the second, those 2 weeks, Bitcoin really kind of took the lead again. And if you now look at the returns, basically Bitcoin actually outperformed Ethereum in the second quarter, and this looked completely the opposite if you're just comparing it mid-June. So very, very interesting. At the end, Bitcoin has been the top performer of all cryptos. On the larger kind of scale, it was very difficult for most altcoins to compete. There are 2 exceptions, Litecoin and Bitcoin Cash. I discussed this a lot on why this could be or where this is coming from. Is very interesting. Now, we have all those coins listed on the Bake platform. If you want to get involved in those coins, you want to get cash flow on those coins, go to bake.io, and you can either buy Bitcoin, ETH. You can also get Litecoin, Bitcoin Cash, and benefit from the rallies. Obviously, also take the risk of potential downsides. I know many of you are holding DFI. DFI did actually really well in comparison to Bitcoin, especially if you look at the other altcoins. Most altcoins really got slaughtered. DFI held up really, really well. So I think that was quite nice to see a bit. One thing we did see, crypto really lost its correlation with the S&P 500. This correlation is really, really low right now. And I have some kind of suspicions on why this is. I think a lot of it just has to do with the entire kind of Binance selling and Bitcoin buying. Obviously, the rally in the second half of June, which really was due to the Bitcoin spot ETF Hopium, that all really helped to kind of pump prices when stocks were crashing, and the other way around. So let's see if that low correlation of crypto to stocks is going to continue in the second half of the year. I'll share this a bit when we continue a bit further. The big winners were definitely the tech stocks. Tech stocks did insanely well, and with insanely well, I mean insanely well. They even outperformed crypto. The other second group that did insanely well were a lot of the travel stocks. So a lot of the cruises, so they did also insanely well. Reason for that, obviously a bit of a counter to what happened last year for a lot of the cruises, counter to COVID, I think no surprise. But if you look at the top performing companies, you will see that this is actually really tech stocks as a whole did really well. The safer, boring stocks, they underperformed in Q2, but especially the tech stocks did really, really, really well. If you look at the indices also very interesting. The Nasdaq did better than the S&P 500, and that did better than the Dow Jones. So you definitely see a bit of a trend here. We're definitely back to some risk on. We're definitely seeing this trend of AI, and we definitely see that people just want to take a little bit more risk right now. And I think a lot of those things were a bit unexpected. I do want to say that. And it's been a bit of a huge discussion also in the general markets. Why is this fear that was supposed to be there, why is it not there? And I just think that people have a lot of hope right now. It seems that the Fed has been doing a fair job in increasing the interest rates. And so it's going to be interesting to see how this is going to be happening in the second half of the year. Stock-wise, the top performer out of the S&P 500, and I think this is absolutely no surprise, NVIDIA, 190% up year to date. I mean, this is absolutely bonkers. And look, I do see those comparisons where crypto coins are being compared with indices. And I mean, we're talking about different universes here, right? All of NVIDIA is basically as big as the entire crypto sector. Apple hit a new all-time high and it's worth $3 trillion. So it's, while these crypto coins did really, really well in the second quarter and in the entire first half of 2023, you really have to kind of give some respect to some of those tech companies and how well they're doing. Tesla, they just hit new record highs in deliveries for the second quarter. Stock is up 113% now with the pump of yesterday. It's up about 120%. So, yeah, these are eye-watering numbers, and it's really absolutely incredible. I think if we are reflecting a bit on one key thing, then it really is a bit of the regulation fight against some of the regulation hopium, right? We have that kind of crackdown of Bitcoin, of Binance and Coinbase, and then we have the Bitcoin spot ETF. And so both things kind of together have been fighting in Q2. And so if I'm going to do a bit of a reflection here on what happened in Q2, and we go back and see kind of the rundown a bit, then yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting one, because we went into Q2 expecting a bit of a correction in comparison to Q1. And look, I said this all the way until mid-June, it really looked like this. We did see the SEC kind of coming down on Binance, coming down on Coinbase. We did see the Ethereum successful unstaking fork that people could actually unstake. We did see that. But the interesting part really was that while Ethereum did really, really well in Q2, Bitcoin actually didn't do so well. And then it all changed mid of June. This hopium came out around the Bitcoin spot ETF, and this was really the strong counter reaction to everything that was prior. And at the end, Bitcoin outperformed Ethereum and most of the other top 10 coins. As mentioned, out of the larger coins, out of the top 50 or something, only Bitcoin Cash and Litecoin really outperformed Bitcoin. And I mean, they did by a mile, but I think this is a big difference. I think this is going to be with us also for Q3, because there's going to be a lot of hopium now. What's going to happen to all these Bitcoin spot ETFs, right? Are they going to get approved or not? And I mean, look, the timelines, let me jump, I'm jumping a bit back and forth here, but the timelines on those Bitcoin spot ETFs is also very interesting to kind of see. There's a lot in the race right now. So we have really the whole list of pretty much all the companies, and all the large ones, all of them are part of those Bitcoin spot ETF applications. Now, the one that can make the race the earliest is the ARK one. So they filed theirs end of April, while everyone else has been filing end of June. All these dates got updated, except for the one for ARK, which was also interesting. Even BlackRock, they updated their filing date. They didn't update it, so they basically had a new date. And so the timelines on this can, and this depends obviously a bit on the speed, depends on the actual approval, but the worst case is that this takes around 8 months, 240 days. So that's kind of the worst case for when the filing is, and then in case it gets denied, there's a constant or there's an extension, The worst case is 240 days or about 8 months. So if we calculate that for ARK, then this would mean we would see something this year. Q3 would be a bit early, but maybe in Q4. Now, obviously, and this is the huge hopium in all of that, it could be that the SEC simply approves it earlier and just says, hey, look, it's fine, go ahead. And so this is obviously a huge discussion in this. And I think that's going to be a big driver in all of Q3. If one prediction here, and we're going to look into a couple of predictions. One prediction for Q3 really is this continuous fight of Binance, Coinbase, security crackdown in the US versus hopium that we're going to see an ETF in this. And the other interesting part, now there's even rumors coming up that we may even see an ETF for Ethereum. I do think that's a bit premature. I don't think we're going to see this right now. I think we would really only see this once a Bitcoin spot ETF is kind of approved. But it's quite interesting to see that how fast we're going with all this. The other topic we did see popping up was the digital currency loan to Genesis. And that thing got pushed forward. Now, there was a massive kind of development to that story. Let me pull that up. And that just happened actually this morning here in Singapore. By the way, for everyone watching here from the US, happy July 4th, happy Independence Day. But yesterday, Cameron Winklevoss, one of the Winklevoss twins, posted on Twitter this lengthy kind of letter, open letter to Barry Silbert, where he was very, very clear in what he thinks about Barry. I'm not going to kind of rehearse all this. He was very clear that he thinks Barry's worth than Sam Bankman-Fried. And he says that Barry Silbert is kind of ripping everyone off. And so he goes into this extensive letter and says that if, I think July 7th, right? That's, I think, the deadline. July 6th, 4 p.m. If by that time Barry doesn't agree to the terms and he has laid out the best and final offer, he made that on July 3rd. It's a similar thing that has always been discussed. Some people say it's a bit worse. Some people say it's a bit better. I cannot judge that as well because I'm not all too deep into all the specifics on this. But to me, on the first glance, it looks very similar to what Digital Currency Group actually would owe Genesis, and in this case, Gemini. They're saying, hey, pay up, otherwise we're going to go to court and we're going to take you for everything that we can get. And so that's going to be a very, very interesting development because obviously there's a very strong push now in all this. And why is this relevant? Well, for several reasons. First of all, Digital Currency Group may go into a Chapter 11, may have to dissolve the Grayscale Trust, and that could release a lot of Bitcoins that are already being sold and now then would actually get sold on the market. That would be interesting. How is this going to get flipped into an ETF? Or what happens if an ETF happens at the same time? What happens if that trust actually gets converted into an ETF? So very, very interesting kind of things that are going on in this. And that's something we're definitely going to see in Q3. So we had expected that this happened in Q2 already. It got pushed forward. There was a lot of criticism from Gemini and from many of the creditors. Why did this keep getting pushed forward? But so I think that's a very interesting one here. Another one, I saw no news about this, and it doesn't seem like that there was anything around this. The US, I don't think, didn't sell off their $1 billion worth of Bitcoin. In return, also Michael Saylor, except for the last 2 weeks, and so there's a bit of a speculation, why was there a pump in the last part of June? Was it because of the Bitcoin spot ETF? It could be. Some people are saying it had nothing to do with that. People are saying this had everything to do with Michael Saylor buying. I don't know. But one thing we didn't see, and that was something we saw in Q1, we didn't see the US selling off their Bitcoin. Some people are saying this is pure speculation. So yeah, it's going to be very, very interesting to see if we're going to see more of that. Obviously, we're also going to talk about Q3. We're going to talk about Mt. Gox, even though I think that topic is going to get pushed more into Q4. Yeah, the big thing, we had the Bitcoin spot ETF, obviously, but with that, we also had the crackdown. And that crackdown was a topic that we basically saw all of Q2. We did have issues with some of the banks, but at the end, the banking crisis was kind of done in Q1. And from that point on, we had this massive crackdown in the US, crypto choke point 2.0. We discussed it in so many shows here. and obviously a lot of it against Coinbase. But with Coinbase, it's a total different animal than against Binance. On Binance, there are a lot of fraud allegations. There are a lot of allegations of mishandling of funds. And I want to be clear, these are all allegations. Coinbase actually countersued against the SEC, and they're saying that they are bad mouthing CC, and that puts a bad light on on Binance. And the SEC actually doesn't have any evidence, so it's going to be quite interesting to see this. With Coinbase, however, very different animal, because there it's just all about that these coins that they have listed in the SEC's opinion are securities. And this obviously is a huge difference than fraud allegations. It's also very clear that the large Wall Street players, they don't seem to care about this, because pretty much all the ETF applications have Coinbase as the custodial party. So it seems very clear that BlackRock and all of them, they don't really care what the SEC says about whether these coins are securities or not. And I mean, it doesn't really affect Bitcoin in that sense. So they all are very clear. They say, yeah, this is one part of the business. It may be that these are securities. It may not be. What do we care? We believe what Coinbase is doing from a security standpoint, from an operational standpoint, is state of the art in the US. And I would agree with that. And so that's why they're working with them. Now, obviously, the counter opinion to that is the SEC is going to use this as a very easy excuse to refuse or reject the Bitcoin spot ETF application. I'm not sure. It's going to be a bit tricky to kind of look into the SEC here. So that's going to be definitely an interesting one. I definitely think this will continue. There are rumors, and these rumors have been swirling around for a long time, that Binance is also facing so Binance has the CFTC, it has the SEC, and so now it may also have the Department of Justice. That would be then a criminal investigation. So it kind of has the entire thing. Now, a couple of things that really didn't occur, and that was the entire economic crisis. We do see a recession in Europe. We see this in Germany, but we see none of that in the US for now. So that's obviously also a very interesting one. Also, the real estate market has been holding up relatively well. We actually saw a little bit of a bounce, quite interesting to reflect on that. So these were things that I just thought would be coming down, and it didn't. And I think that's going to be an interesting one also for the rest of the year, both the recession and the real estate market. Europe pushed forward with MiCA. So the MiCA regulation, markets in crypto assets, is approved and should get active next year. This is also going to be relevant for us because obviously we, from a big standpoint, would also use that as a European license. Now, the other topic, and we had massive updates on this, obviously, was the Fed balance sheet. We had the entire fear around, is the US going to go into an insolvency? This was all solved. But now the interest rates, and we have seen for the first time in 1.5 years in the June interest rate meeting, our FOMC meeting, an interest rate pause. And obviously, this was an interesting one because now people are speculating and saying, hey, well, maybe that's it. Maybe we're going to see a turnaround. However, and I think this is also important to mention here, the Fed has been very clear on this, that they said, no, this is definitely not a pause. We're going to do between 1 and 3 more rate hikes in all of that. So yeah, we are just about at 5% right now. And market expectation is that we're definitely going to see one rate hike. Maybe we're going to see another one. And for now in July, actually the market is really expecting another rate hike. So end of July, let's see. That's going to be an interesting one to kind of watch a bit. And then how many more will we see? I do want to point out a key part on this. Generally, these 25 basis point hikes at 5% levels are tiny. They almost have no impact, especially not right now. They would have an impact maybe in a year. So to me, those interest rate hikes right now are probably 3 things. First, it's the Fed telling the market that they are not done, that they may still keep hiking. I think that's the first thing. The second one, they just want to kind of rate hike. So to me, like they still want to kind of get, so it's not only the signaling, they do want to get the rates slightly up. I think that makes sense. But the third, and that's probably the most important thing, they want to have more buffer in case they have to bring the interest rates down so they can, in case it goes into a recession, they can really kind of speed up the economy again. So I do totally think that this is absolutely crucial in all of that. So yeah, this is what we're seeing there. Now, one thing we did not see, and we also talked about that this makes a lot of sense, that it's absolutely fine that we're not going to see this. Is this US dollar hyperinflation? Obviously, there was this Balaji bet, which, to be honest, was absolutely ridiculous. And also, I mean, when he made that bet about Bitcoin going to $1 million, at that point when the bet was due, that was still mid-June. By that time, Bitcoin hadn't rallied yet. Bitcoin actually was lower than at that time when he made the bet. So this was also very interesting. Bitcoin then rallied basically after that. And I think it had nothing to do with that bet. It really was about Sailor and the Bitcoin spot ETF, Hopium. Now, we do have one bonus point. Obviously, we did have our formal structuring of the entire group. We made a long blog post around this. You can read this also, and we talked about this in great detail. And we did have that renaming of Cake DeFi into Bake, which is, to me, just a beautiful name and makes a lot of sense since the group is called Cake. And everything that we do here, all the different verticals are part of that. Now, why did we do that? Well, just better structuring internally and also for the naming. And everyone working on those verticals in the company don't necessarily affiliate themselves with the retail side. Also, the way we operate. I mean, our enterprise side, Levain, just doesn't, it's completely different philosophy, right? I mean, here, everything is non-custodial, but on Bake, everything is custodial, right? And then you have the R&D side. I mean, this is, again, a totally different ballgame, where maybe on Levain's side, we do work with banks, right? And then obviously on the R&D side, many people are like, hey, we would not even want to touch with banks. But at the end, everything is crypto, everything is blockchain. And so it does fall under the Cake group, but still there are different DNAs in there. There are different missions in there, different vision, different things that people are driven by. And so I think this is really key to understand why we did this. And yeah, I think we're going to go a bit into more detail once we do the transparency report. But I think all in all, it was a very successful Q2. It was a very powerful Q2. It was a good one for investors. It was a good one for the company. And I think so far, the entire first half was absolutely bonkers if you are honest about it, right? So it's absolutely one of the most surprisingly positive years that we are actually seeing. And I don't think people in the beginning of the year, the beginning of the quarter, would actually be as optimistic and positive as people are right now. So now, obviously, people are wondering, and they're like, hey, we are seeing a new start to a month, to a quarter, to another half. What's going to continue? Are we going to see some drama in all this, right? Are we going to see some buying the rumors, selling the news? Does this Bitcoin spot ETF actually bring value? Are people not just going to get completely duped in this, right? What are your strategies from a company standpoint? What are your strategies from a personal kind of investor standpoint? And I want to dig into all of that. So let's look into Q3 and a bit of the rest of the year so that you kind of see that as well. Now, the key thing, and honestly, this was written before yesterday. So I didn't know about this before yesterday when this came down. But this entire DCG stuff is going to spike, or it's really going to choose everything up. Why? Because it really puts some pressure on Digital Currency Group. And it may be that there may be some sell-off of assets. So it's going to be definitely an interesting one. I don't see this at all as a positive one for the crypto space, but obviously it is a necessary step for Gemini and for all the creditors. So I totally understand why Gemini is doing this, but that could be a bit of a pressure part for us as crypto investors. Now, the Binance drama. I would be surprised if this thing doesn't continue. Like, I'm dead honest. I actually think we're going to see something of the DOJ. We're definitely going to see it back and forth. The question, though, is going to be a bit, maybe the SEC, maybe Gensler kind of played his hand now. Maybe that's it. Maybe we're not going to see more like push. We're just going to see maybe a bit of more of the same. So that's going to be an interesting one as well. We haven't seen the SEC go after more platforms in the US. So let's see. Maybe that was it. Or maybe it was just the start. But I actually think that the SEC kind of really played their hand. They have been a bit aggressive. Now we're going to see probably a bit of some waiting. I think they've done enough in this sense. And I think the key part is going to be more of the Bitcoin spot ETF in all this. And honestly, that's going to be the major hopium. And it's probably going to be hopium. And I think that's really the a key kind of thing to consider. I doubt we're going to see a final decision in Q3. That would be positively surprising. The markets will definitely rally with a spot ETF. However, and now comes obviously the part, I am not 100% sure how much demand, how much new demand is there. Last week, we discussed this with Fabio. There will definitely be some demand. I don't want to say that there's zero demand, zero new demand. But I do think it will be a lot of reshuffling of existing money that goes into that spot ETF. And sure, we're going to see some new funds coming in. I just don't see that this is going to be this dramatic kind of new pipe where now suddenly funds are coming in. A big question, obviously, are the other kind of predictions here. How is the economy going to do, right? Is the rest of the economy going to go into a crisis? Are we now going to see the real estate issues? Those things are not going to go away. They are still going to be looming over our heads. It would be very, very, very surprising. And obviously, with that spot ETF approval or not, I think it's going to have a massive impact on the ETH versus Bitcoin ratio. So everyone, including myself, who was basically betting on Ethereum outperforming Bitcoin, we were totally right until mid-June. And then the last 2 weeks flipped this. And I always mention this. It doesn't matter where your score is in the middle of the game. What matters is at the end of the game. So if you're just looking at the quarter, right, it doesn't matter if by basically mid-June I was right. No. At the end of the quarter, it flipped. Now, obviously, the game isn't over. The game is getting played longer and longer and longer, sure. But that's also important. And so it's definitely going to be an interesting one. I will stick to my guns here. If there's no Bitcoin spot ETF in Q3, or if there's more bearish news around it, I think Ethereum will be outperforming. However, if this is not the case, if the spot ETF looks very likely, there's positive news around it, I do think Bitcoin will outperform just like it did in Q2. A key thing when we talk about this, obviously also DeFi chain, it's not on that blog post here, but I just want to address that here. I think this makes sense. Obviously, DeFi chain, I think, is going to have a very powerful Q3 quarter. And it's something that me personally, I'm going to be very closely watching, obviously also from a company standpoint. The mainnet on DeFi chain should be going live later this month. Core developers are talking about third, fourth week of July. The general rule is once the mainnet node comes out, it's about 2 weeks afterwards. And I think mainnet node should be coming out in the next 1 to 2 weeks. So let's say it comes out by mid-July, then by the end of July, the entire fork should be through. And I think then we're going to see many projects. I mean, we're seeing already a lot of projects on testnet. A lot of them are going to be going live on mainnet. For example, also on our side, our birthday research team is going to do an R&D token. It's going to do an R&D token that's an ads token, and there's no fundraising around it. The way you get it is by burning DUSD. So you burn DUSD, that should be helping the DUSD price massively. You burn DUSD, and then you get ads. The ads token is going to become an ads token for the Light wallet. So all products that Birthday Research has been building for the ecosystem, and where Birthday Research has the rights to those products. So obviously the Light wallet, the Explorers, and all this. And this should have a massive impact, hopefully, on the DUSD price, on the DFI price. And I know that many projects, many projects have been reaching out to our Whisk Ventures Fund and have been looking into raising funds, want to understand how they can do it. And I've been really handfuls of projects reaching out, and all of them are going kind of the same route. They want to raise some small amount from institutional funders, and the rest is all going to come from burning DFI, burning DUSD. I am very bullish of the ecosystem with this. It's going to be very exciting. I think we're going to see a lot of momentum here in Q3, and maybe by the end of Q3, we have no more issues with DUSD, and suddenly that momentum is very bullish. So let's see. It's going to be quite an exciting quarter, in my opinion, actually for the entire ecosystem, but DeFi chain here especially. Great. What else do we have? Now, obviously, is Saylor going to buy? Is the US going to sell their Bitcoins? That's going to be a bit of a flip. Now, it could be that we are seeing the Mt. Gox coins being sold or being distributed in Q3. I doubt it. I have not seen any evidence that this should be happening in Q3. I think this is rather going to go into Q4. So that's going to be an interesting, obviously, one. And the other one is going to be a bit of the tether finances. Now, there has always been, I mean, this entire tether topic obviously always comes up, jumps in. And yeah, this is just always something to watch. I doubt we're going to see some issues there. I want to be very clear, but it's something that I would watch. So if I look at all this and kind of go through this a bit and tell you how I'm going to position myself, the DCG stuff, in my opinion, is really going to spike up in Q3. I mentioned this at the beginning of the year. I said I would be very surprised if Digital Currency Group is still around by the end of the year in its shape or form. And I would probably say I do think we're going to see some kind of, insolvency, Chapter 11, or some liquidation of DCG in this quarter. I would not be surprised if this is not the case. I do think Binance is going to get more issues. We are seeing this all the time. I always want to be careful talking about competitors of ours. I wish Binance nothing but the best. I want to be very clear on this, but I do think that there's going to be a bit of a spike up in all of this. I think the crypto crackdown has kind of leveled off. I don't think we're going to see much extra drama on this. I don't think we're going to see a Bitcoin spot ETF in Q3. In the first place, I still don't think we're going to see it in the first place. I actually think the odds of it not being approved is still higher than getting approved, but I especially don't think we're going to see it in Q3. The sell-off of the $1 billion of Bitcoin by the US, I don't know. It's difficult to judge this. So for me, it's probably a nothing burger. I think Saylor has been buying every quarter, so I would also expect him to buy in Q3. Would be surprising if not. I think there's zero issues or very little issues with the Tether finances. I talked about the ETH versus Bitcoin ratio, so unless there's something surprising for positively for Bitcoin in Q3, I do think Ethereum is going to outperform. I explained my reasoning here. I don't think we're going to see a recession now in Q2 in the US. Obviously, Europe is in one. Q3 is going to be an interesting one. And so let's talk about stocks. Now, we have seen massive rallies in a lot of these tech companies. And so, interesting. Let's see what we're going to see in Q3 here. Tesla numbers have been great. They kind of indicate that a lot of the other tech companies are probably also going to be doing great. And I don't foresee now that in Q3 we're going to see some massive crash because of all this. One thing I want to mention though, summer quarter, generally a bit of a slower quarter for all investors, many people on holidays. So it could simply be that we're seeing a bit of a leveling off because maybe some people are taking profits, some people are rotating into a bit more boring kind of investments, all these things, just to kind of be a bit more in a safe haven. So I don't think there's going to be more of a sell-off. I think it's just more of maybe taking a little bit of profits, leveling off, and I think that's going to be a bit of a bigger topic than kind of this. Real estate issues, I would be surprised if we're seeing this right now in Q3. Maybe we see some kind of cracks again, but Q2 was very constructive in all this. And obviously, Fed rate hikes. I do fully expect one rate hike in Q3. There's two dates in Q3 that the Fed can raise. I think they're going to raise on one of those dates. I don't think they're going to raise on both. And I think it's going to be end of July and then at the beginning of September. So, end of September, I don't think so. I think they're going to hold off at the beginning of September. Last topic is the entire geopolitical tensions we're seeing right now. And we are seeing those tensions right now in, obviously, the Ukraine. This was a major development in Q2 where this constant war suddenly turned into some kind of revolt in Russia. This was there for 48 hours. It was a very, very difficult, complex situation. Right now, it seems relatively calm there. No one seems to be making any progress. But then France starts bubbling up. It seems to be leveling off as well. But obviously, fears that a lot of these unrests are spreading to the rest of Europe. And so, big question here, is this going to kind of really spread? We saw a little bit of tendencies to Switzerland, but this kind of quieted down right away. So obviously, big topics and discussions in all this. So I hope all of this is giving you some really nice kind of reflection for Q2. And you can let me know. Maybe you let me know in the chat right now, or you can also let me know on Twitter afterwards in the comments. What from Q2 stands out to you? What was the positive surprise, right? And for me, the positive surprise really was the prices ended up green. And why? Because if you had asked me mid-June, 2 weeks before the end, I would say, yeah, look, Bitcoin is down, Ethereum is up. This was expected. Bam. And it turns around, right? Positive surprise. What was the negative surprise? Actually, not much. I think Q2 was actually a very, very bullish quarter. Not much to complain about. I think this is good. Also from a company standpoint, we're going to reflect separately on this. Q3, I do think Q3 is going to be a bit more of a quiet quarter in comparison to Q2. Q2 was really, really full with cryptos regulation stuff, with Hopium, Binance. I think this was absolutely crazy. I do think Q3 is going to be a bit of a calmer quarter in all of that. And generally it is. And I do actually think prices are going to be relatively flat, both in stocks, both in crypto. I don't necessarily see a red quarter here. I want to be very clear. Big exception on this is more of if we're seeing this massive spot ETF Hopium. I think that's going to be a key topic. The other key topic is going to be digital currency group. I think Mt. Gox is going to get pushed into Q4. So I think all of that is going to be a bit of a question mark from a kind of decision-making tree. Yeah, let me know what you think about Q3. We're going to do a separate session with the transparency report, what we have in the company. Obviously, aside of the restructuring, now verticals, very, very clear, goals, very, very clear. Next Monday, we're going to launch our new app on Bake. It's going to launch with some really great user experience, a lot of simplification. Important on Monday, you're not going to have new products on the app yet. That's going to happen in the next steps afterwards. So we want to do this all in steps. That's also important. A lot of this is already planned, it's already in line, but we don't want to come out with a new app and suddenly add everything on top right away. This is, I think, very confusing because what you're going to see is you're going to see an entirely new user experience. Everything is kind of packaged differently, cleaner, easier. The old app kind of is a result of 4 years of stacking. And so this new app is going to be super slick, super clean, absolutely beautiful. And then in the second step afterwards, you're going to be seeing new services, new products, new things to do. And that's also something we've been working on for a very, very long time. And that's going to be a main focus in all of Q3. With all that. So I think that's going to be a major thing that you're going to see on the Bake side. Obviously, on the Levain side, we have been doing an incredible job in marketing to more and more companies, more and more institutions. If you are someone who wants to take control of the coins yourself, having custody, whether you're a small or a big enterprise, check out levain.tech. Very, very interesting there. On the birthday research side, we have been really focused in Q2 on building the products for DeFi chain. The open source team has been helping on the DeFi chain fork with the meta chain layer. There's a lot of effort there. And then we had another team that we built in Q2 that's really focused on the Bitcoin ordinals topic and has been really focused on delivering value there. So this is quite exciting. Obviously, end of the quarter in September, there's Token 2049 here in Singapore. I know there's a lot of you coming. Formula One is here. And our team is also organizing the Ord Summit. So it's an ordinal summit. You can also check this out. We tweeted this. We posted this. That's going to be really, really nice. I'll also be there. u-zyn is going to be there. So we're definitely going to be super involved and very much looking forward. There's some really amazing speakers. And I know some of the Taproot wizards are going to be there. And yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. So I hope I'll see you for Token 2049. I hope I'll see you for the Ord Summit. End of September. So I think, yeah, we have quite some exciting stuff lined up. Obviously, if you are building a startup, if you're building a company, a token project, and you're looking for funding, please reach out to our VC fund, to Whisk. And last but not least, we're one of the few companies in the space that is still hiring. We're hiring on all verticals, actually. So yeah, go to our website and look for roles that are open. We're looking on the marketing side, we're looking on the tech side, and we would love to get more people to join the Cake family. Yeah. With this, I hope you're showering me with compliments here, how amazing I am, even Fabio not being here. That would be a beautiful feedback for me. And, I can show to Fabio, I say, hey, you see, I know Bitcoin is at 31,000. I can do this. Awesome. Everyone, I hope you're following us on Twitter. I hope you are having a beautiful week. If you are following us on YouTube, then click the like button, click the subscribe button. Remember, if you subscribe on Twitter and you subscribe on YouTube, prices are going up. And you don't want to risk a bad omen by not subscribing, by not following, by not liking, and prices going down, right? So like, subscribe, follow, leave a positive comment, positive omen, and we're on a good track. So all the best. Thank you so much. Appreciate you all. It's been amazing. See you soon next Tuesday. Let's see what the price is and if Fabio still has a bit of a sharp mouth and is going to tell me, boss, watch your mouth. So let's watch and find out next week. All the best. Yours, Julian. Bye-bye.